So the biggest story in this neck of the woods is certainly the WRU's announcement and their 100-page document saying how they want to take the game forward in Wales, club-wise, the structure going forwards. I did a big video just when it broke, but now we've had news conferences, we've had this document, and loads of great feedback from that first video. I think it's definitely worth doing a follow-up, picking up some finer points, and also taking your opinions on them, because the clock is now ticking. The decision will be made in October. What are they going to do? The first question was, what is the optimal solution? Now, there was a bit of pushback in the comments saying I was saying the two-club solution was the optimal solution as they presented it. Not quite, but also, yes, probably. They gave 4 options, and they said the one that fitted their grand view the best was the two-club option, which was option D. They said option D wasn't quite their preferable solution, but it was closest to it. So a bit weird, but essentially that's what they're saying, aren't they? They're saying the two-club solution is our optimal solution because it's closest to the one we want. It's pretty weird, but that's clearly what they're gunning for. And let's see if this consultation process changes that in any way, shape and form. And certainly does it save an extra team or create an extra team? Because it's really interesting to see, are they going to save any teams? Or is it much more likely, as I suggested in the last video, that all 4 regions disappear and then reappear in the SRC? They all go into the SRC, Llanelli going up into that, and that's where the hotbed, the tribalism happens. That's where you support your teams in Neath, your Swansea, your Cardiff, your Newport, etc. That's where you go for that stuff. And then if you want to watch the best, if you like the elite, you go and watch one of these probably 2 teams. Well, that's a really interesting one. We had more detail, and it absolutely looks like the WRU want to base them, as in where they train, in the same place. Maybe it's radical, maybe it's a great idea, because they can just then centralise everything, all the medical, all the training, all the infrastructure, all the facilities. It can be just one place. They can share it. You don't have to double up. That definitely saves money. And one of the big aims, clearly Dave Redden was saying it fairly straightforward in the press conference, we want a really joined up approach where the WRU literally controls all the rugby matters. How they play, who they recruit, where they play, all that sort of thing. And then they draw their national team largely from those 2 teams, if it is 2 teams, which I think it will be, and maybe a smattering here and there from experienced players who are playing outside of Wales. And even though they didn't talk about exactly where they're going to be playing their games, it does look like they'll be based in the same place, which I think puts paid almost to the idea that they're going to retain 2 clubs, say the Scarlets and Cardiff, Llanelli and Cardiff. I don't think that's going to work, especially if they're based in the same place. To say they identify with a certain area is pretty ridiculous. They're just going to be 2 professional teams playing at an elite level, sharing facilities, and then maybe going around stadiums, maybe alternating between, Cardiff, Newport, etc., and alternating the stadiums, Parky Scarlets, if they ever build this new one in Swansea, and they move around and they don't really have a massive identity. Can you say one is east, one is west when they're training in the same place? I'm not so sure. It obviously depends where the player's from. Are they going to say, right, the East-based players go in one club and the West in another one, or do they mix it up depending on what they want to do for the national team? And then say to the youngsters, start to follow these teams, start to get an identity with them. And if you want to follow your local area, your local town, then go and watch the SRC games. I think that probably is the best solution out of a bad situation. Let me know if you agree. I know quite a few already have said, yeah, that probably is the best situation. It's sad, but then at least we can still follow our local club with all its history. Now, of course, if that happens, there are going to be massive legal claims from the 4 regions saying, what's happened here? You've taken away our professional rugby and you put us down a league. We're going to be semi-pro, and that's us done now as a major force in Europe, in the URC, etc. And, there's going to be a big claim there because they're going to rightly say, we signed those agreements, those contracts that guaranteed us professional rugby at different levels of funding, because there were 2 different levels, of course, and that's going to be fought heavily. The WRU said in all the press conferences they are ready for that fight. They think they can do it. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be very, very messy. It does look like playing budgets are going to be maybe slightly higher, 7.8 million, which is decent, but it's not near the biggest clubs in the URC. It's kind of close-ish to the English clubs, but it's not exactly massive. So yes, they could be more concentrated talent-wise in Wales, but there's not a huge amount to go around if they're picking the best players, and they're picking 2 non-Welsh players to come in, which are probably going to be pretty big signings on decent wages as well. And they're saying most of the players in the national team have to play in Wales. It's not a huge amount of money to go around. It's going to go fairly thin. So will some players leave and say, well, that's it, I can't play for Wales, but I want to get paid a decent wage and I need to go somewhere else? I think that probably will happen. So there definitely is a big question saying how much is it going to benefit the Welsh national team, certainly in joined up thinking and the way they play, the way they direct talent to these 2 teams and develop them. I think it's going to help. I think the women's team will definitely help if they have 2 serious sides based at this national centre. The Welsh national women's team hasn't been great, and it should definitely get better if this is the system. The men's, don't know. They are going to be losing a number of players to pick from, but the more centralised approach may make up for that. But this is definitely the option for the WRU to take full control of the rugby side of their game, and I think they're going to take it. If this is the chance to do it, I think they're going to go for it and concentrate that talent in 2 teams, maybe 3, but it's going to be a very different system with loads of control from the WRU. They're still going to have to attract some private investment, which looks like dealing with the commercial side, and the WRU will say, we will fund and run the rugby side, you deal with that, private investors. Will they go for it? If they have no say over who they sign and how they play and all that sort of stuff, are big money individuals or companies going to want to do that? So that is a big question. Then there's the question of fans. How can they get fans won over to this new idea if it's 2 new entities with no real clear identity? Will the fans disappear and just stop supporting rugby? Will they go and only watch their local side in the SRC and not bother turning up to these big national teams with no real heart to start with? It is a problem. Certainly in the feedback from the last video in the comments, you guys were saying, well, if it is a team that is clearly based in Llanelli and it's pretty much the Scarlets, but they've changed the name, well, we're not going to go and watch it. No way. If we were Swansea fans, Neath fans, Ospreys fans, they're not going to suddenly go over to the Parky Scarlets and pretend that everything is great, and vice versa with Cardiff and Newport. If one of those stays and the other one goes, it's just not going to happen. So even if they start over, can they win over the new fans? It's just a massive, massive challenge. And finally, what competition will they play in? They said in the press conference they are dedicated to the URC. That's where they want to play. But of course, they'll be losing some teams. So they're going to be saying to the URC, we want to stay in here, but we're only going to have 2 teams. So that's a big change. The other interesting avenue is, of course, if they say, okay, we are going to try and push to try and join the Premiership, the English Premiership, where you have these 2 new Welsh teams playing in the Premiership, could be very attractive for the English teams, for the Welsh teams. That would create a huge rivalry. Wales versus England, it might get over that hump of not having that identity for the Welsh teams to say, right, you get mini internationals pretty much every week, and that's going to be pretty exciting. Would the Premiership go for that? There's space in their league, there's 10, the 2 Welsh teams would make it 12. Do they want to deal with WRU union-backed clubs is a big question, but it definitely would be exciting. But of course, that would be, saying to the URC, thank you, but we're off, and I'm sure there'd be legal challenges in that and stuff like that. So really interesting time. Is there hope on the horizon? Maybe, just maybe, but it's going to be so painful. It does to me really look like it's going to be this 2 clubs, 2 new identities, and all 4 of those regions will be playing in the SRC in the future. But who knows, maybe something will change, but this is the chance for the WRU to take the control they desperately wanted. I think they're going to go for it. It's going to be 6 weeks of these regions fighting for their lives and probably not really getting anywhere. So it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. There's going to be a legal bloodbath as well. But anyway, let me know what you thought of those press conferences, of that big 100-page document about what they want to do. Comments down below. It's going to run for a bit. We'll find out what happens in October, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Anyway, guys, until next time, I'll see you then.